How interesting. There is a law in the United Kingdom that prohibits anyone from lending money at a rate of interest higher than 0.8% per day. Does that sound okay to you? Let's just see what it means. First of all, we remind ourselves about how we do percentage increases. Any amount, as in our little square, if we're increasing it by 0.8%, will go up by 0.8 per 100. And the best way to write that is to write it as 8 over 1,000, because obviously 0.8 is already a tenth of 8. So a tenth of 8 divided by 100 is 1,000th of 8. So the factor that we need to do our multiplication to increase our amount by 0.8% is 1 plus 8 over 1,000, which is 1.008. And that looks quite small, doesn't it? The problem is that it's every day. Now you remember, but I'm going to go through it because it's really important to understand it, that every time we increase, we do another multiplication. So after one day, we will have multiplied by 1.008. The next day, we will do that again. So this is after 2 days. And then again after 3 days. And so on. And you'll remember that this multiplication, when we repeat it, this is called powers. So the number that we're looking for, if we are looking for, well, let's start with just 1 week. 1 week. We are looking to increase our original amount by 1.008 to the power 7, because we've increased it 7 times. And what's that? Well, I'm just going to stop a minute, see if you can guess. The answer is 1.0574. It's actually a 3 and then a lot of other numbers, but we'll just give 4 decimal places here, which is probably more than we really need, but it gives an idea of what's going on. Now let's just look at this number, because we know what this number means, don't we? To make it a bit easier to see, let's just write this as approximately 1.06. And we know what that means. We mean 1 plus 6 over 100, or 6%. So let's be clear, our 0.8% per day means increasing at 6%, a bit less, per week. Now, I hear what you're saying. You're saying, but isn't that obvious? After all, 0.8% for 7 days is going to be 5.6%. You just multiply. And that's very nearly what we got. It's the very nearly that's the problem, because remember, we will go on like this. So let's ask ourselves what happens if we leave the money borrowed. In other words, we don't pay it back, we keep it and we let the interest build up. What happens after 2 weeks? Well, we know how to do it. It's just 1.008 to the power 14. What do you think that is? Again, I'll just pause a moment while you think about it. The answer is 1.1180, and then some more numbers, which is now approximately 1.12. little bit less. And again, you might say, well, that's not so unlikely, is it? If we take 0.8% and we multiply by 14, we will get 11.2%. And again, that doesn't sound too bad. After all, the comparison between 11.2 and 11.8 doesn't sound too bad, just as the comparison between 5.6 and 5.74 didn't sound too bad. But as I say, it goes on growing. Let's draw up a table and look at the number of days that we borrow the money for and what the net effect of that is. And I've chosen a week, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 90 days, half a year roughly, and a whole year exactly. No leap years here. We've already seen that the first two answers are roughly 6%, roughly 12%. What do you think 28 days does? The answer comes out almost exactly to 2500. So in other words, here it's roughly 6% a week, here it's roughly 12% a fortnight, and here it's roughly 25%. That means that if you borrow £1, in a month's time you will owe £1.25. If you borrow £100, you'll owe £125. If you borrow 1,000, you'll owe £1,250. And it gets worse. What do you think 90 might do? Well, the answer is that it becomes 2.0486 roughly, or about 105%. Because remember, we have to take 1 away, so this is 1 plus approximately 105 over 100, if we just deal with 2 decimal places. So after 3 months, we will owe more in interest than we borrowed to start with, in just 3 months. And if you think that's bad, what do you think happens after 6 months, or as I'm calling it here, 180 days? You may not believe the answer. It's 4.1966, which means 1 plus approximately 320 over 100, which is 320%. So again, if you borrow £100 at this rate of interest for 6 months, you will owe the original £100 and another £320 in interest, a total of £419.66 if you look at the number, in just 180 days. One more, because the last answer is barely believable unless you've done a lot of work on compound interest in the past. How much do you think 0.8% per day for a year compound comes to? Again, let's just pause and think about it. You think it might be 8 or something? You think it might be 12 or something? In fact, it's 18.3271, which is 1 plus 1,733 over 100, an annual rate of interest of 1,733%. If you borrow £100 today at this rate of interest, and you don't pay it back for a year, you will owe the original £100 plus £1,733. A total repayment of, if we put the pennies in as well, £1,832.71. That's converting this into pennies. And the chances are, as I need hardly say, that if you're so desperate that you need to borrow £100 at this kind of extortionate rate of interest today, your chances of being able to pay it back in a year's time at this rate of interest are virtually zero.